Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Sherrone Moore, this Michigan program, set to host a monster recruiting weekend over the next couple of days in Ann Arbor. I want to talk about some of my favorite names that will be on campus for this Michigan program. But I want to start with, some overarching takes around how Michigan is deciding to operate on the recruiting trail. And I think it goes back to when Sherrone Moore took this job as Michigan's head coach. A lot of Michigan fans, including myself, we spent extensive amounts of time talking in the comments section about how the recruiting operation is going to look for this Michigan program. And I think a lot of Michigan fans, shared this sentiment that Michigan is a premier program in the college football landscape, has been to 3 straight college football playoffs, has won 3 straight Big Ten conference titles, is the reigning national champions. This Michigan program should go anywhere in the country and be able to go get some of that top talent coming to Ann Arbor. And you take a look at the prospects that Michigan is going after. We're going to talk about 2 kids from Nevada. We're going to talk a kid from Texas. We're going to talk about a kid from California. Michigan is going nationally on the recruiting trail. And I think for a lot of Michigan fans, including myself, that's probably what we are most fired up about over the next couple of years. Really excited to get into it. Before we do, and as always, just want to give a massive shout out to the Michigan fans. Y'all know I love talking the recruiting trail. And I think for Michigan fans, it's going to be a very exciting next couple of weeks and months on the trail. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. The Michigan fans, y'all continue to show a ton of love, a ton of support to the boys. It really does mean the world. And without further ado, let's get into this one. And let's start with a kid that's going to be on campus this weekend that is probably one of my favorite targets for this Michigan program. And that is wide receiver Derek Meadows from Las Vegas, Nevada, playing his football for Bishop Gorman. Now, Michigan has had some success recruiting this high school. We are in it for a couple of different kids in this 2025 class from that high school. You look at Derek Meadows, you look at what Michigan fans have been asking for in terms of the type of wide receiver to get into this program. Derek Meadows represents what we've been banging the table for the last couple of cycles. He's 6'5", he's 200 pounds. He's one of the best track and field athletes in the state of Nevada, state champ in the 300-meter hurdles. And then you look at the film and say, all right, 6'5", 200 pounds. He runs extremely well. The ball skills are very much there. 15 catches for 391 yards. He averaged 26 yards per catch. We've been looking for a wide receiver that can work vertically down the field, help Michigan continue to manufacture some of those explosive plays in that passing attack. Derek Meadows is that guy. And you look at Derek Meadows and say, all right, there's a little bit of kind of raw traits that you have, right? He's only caught 15 passes during his junior year. But you look at Derek Meadows, you watch the film and say, Michigan needs to bet on this kind of wide receiver, get him in this program, coach him up. You are looking at, potentially an All-American caliber wide receiver with the physical traits that this kid has. He has the size, he has the frame, he has the long speed, checks off every single box that we've been looking for wide receivers coming from the high school ranks. If there was one guy that I'm looking at and saying, if Michigan landed him, I'd be fired up about, it's probably going to be wide receiver Derek Meadows coming from Bishop Gorman. Now, let's go to the offensive line, where we don't really have many question marks about how Michigan can recruit this position, but we're going to stick in Bishop Gorman in Las Vegas, Nevada, and talk about Douglas Utu, who another guy that you're looking at offensive linemen that you just have no questions about making the jump from the high school level to the college level. You're looking at a guy in Douglas Utu who's going to be a 4-year starter at Bishop Gorman, a high school team that was the best program in the country in 2023. This is a guy that has played right tackle, probably kicks inside at the collegiate level, but has that versatility. The thing I love most about Douglas Utu is the projectable traits. This is a guy that you watch the high school film and say, this kid is ready to play at the college football level pretty much right away. There is not much downside to his game. You don't have many questions. And when you're recruiting the offensive line position, that's kind of what I'm looking for, right? When you look at the wide receiver spot, a guy like Derek Meadows, where you might have some question marks about the productivity, there's some things that need to be figured out. go bet on those traits. And if you miss on a guy like Derek Meadows, you can address that position in the transfer portal. You look at the offensive line, you want to get guys that you know are going to translate to the collegiate level, because it is extremely hard to go into the transfer portal and grab offensive linemen. So you want to make sure you're hitting with the offensive linemen you're grabbing from the high school ranks. And if there's a guy across the country that you just kind of sure is going to hit at the college level, you're looking at one. And a guy like Douglas Utu, who, again, the versatility is something that I really like. Going to our next prospect who's going to be on campus, and another guy that's a top 100 national prospect, Keanu Winston, coming from Washington, D.C., played at the same high school that Caleb Williams played at. Talk about Michigan in the defensive back room, a guy that just fits exactly what we want to do. I think you're looking at one with a guy in Winston who, again, elite track and field athlete, some of the best times that you'll see in the country, 5'10", 190 pounds. You take a look at this kid and say he is absolutely put together. And the thing I love most about Winston is I think he fits into this Michigan defense exceptionally well. You talk about the versatility that we want to play with some of our defensive backs. A guy like Winston could play that free safety spot with the long speed he has. He covers ground tremendously well, can take away throwing windows, can take away the football. But then you take a look at what he can do around the line of scrimmage, whether it's as a box safety, whether it's as a nickel defender. This is a guy that is so active in the run game as well. Again, 5'10", but 190 pounds, about as physical of a safety that you'll see. And we talk about this a lot. You look at some of the programs that are coming into the Big Ten, they're going to force you to have a lot of athleticism on the football field. You want guys that can match the athleticism that teams like Oregon and USC are going to have, but also guys that can come in and stop the run. I think a guy like Winston is one of those guys, and you look at what made Michigan so special on defense the last couple of years, guys like Makari Page, guys like Rod Moore, Mikey Sandstrill. I certainly throw him into this list as well. They tackle exceptionally well in the run game. And you look at a lot of other Power 5 programs, they might have some good defensive back, but they struggle to come up and be active in the run game. Michigan had no questions about that. Winston's a guy that can come into this program and kind of do those same type of things. Moving up to our next player, line of scrimmage guy from the state of Texas, DJ Sanders. You take a look at the development Michigan has had on the defensive line, specifically on the inside of the defensive line, right? Chris Jenkins going to the NFL. Take a look at Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, arguably the top two interior defensive linemen that you see in the country heading into 2024. This is another position that Michigan should be able to clean up on the recruiting trail because of the proven track record of the development over the last couple of years. You look at DJ Sanders and say 6'4", 290, one of the strongest players at the point of attack. And this is a guy that can play that nose tackle spot, can play that three tackle spot, has phenomenal athleticism for his size. But again, when you look at DJ Sanders and what he brings to this Michigan program, he's a little bit raw, but man, does this guy have power in his hands. He routinely just walks interior offensive linemen right into the lap of the quarterback. You look at all the disruption that we got from guys like Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant. DJ Sanders is a guy that I think can come in and kind of provide that exact same disruption over the next couple of years for this Michigan program. Last guy I want to talk about, and I mean, Derek Meadows was probably the most intriguing prospect we're going to talk about. If there's a close second, it's going to be linebacker / edge rusher Marco Jones. He's 6'5", he's 230, about as good of a mover as you'll see for that height and that size. This is a guy that plays a lot of off-ball linebacker. He is long. He gets his hands on a lot of passes, kind of dropping back in zone coverage. And I think the question is, all right, can he move at the level you want at that off-ball linebacker spot? You see him routinely go sideline to sideline, had 149 tackles as a junior in high school. And then you see some reps of him coming off the edge as an edge rusher and say, he might project best as an edge rusher with that frame and that athleticism that he has. You might put on some weight, get him up to 250, 260 pounds. The versatility is really intriguing. And although there's a little bit of a murky picture in terms of, does he play off-ball linebacker? Is he an edge rusher for Michigan? This is one of those guys that You get into the program and you'll figure out the rest later. I trust Sherrone Moore, Wink Martindale to make the right decision in terms of where Marco Jones best fits into this Michigan defense. And we talk about this all the time. College football is not that much of a complicated sport. Get big, fast, functional athletes on your program, and you're going to win a lot of football games. Marco Jones, in my mind, is one of the premier athletes that you see at the high school ranks. And so whether he's an edge rusher, whether he's an off-ball linebacker that comes and blitzes and rushes the passer a lot, like we're probably going to see from Jayshon Barham, I think this is a kid that you're just betting on and getting into this program. 5 guys coming on campus, all of which are top 150 national prospects, all of which are from all over the country. And so you're looking at Michigan, one, taking swings at some of the top prospects at the high school ranks, but also going nationally and recruiting guys to come to Ann Arbor. That's kind of a difference of approach than you saw what Michigan has done the last couple of years, where a lot of Michigan's guys have kind of stayed in the Midwest. And this is not me getting up here and saying we're not going to recruit the Midwest. That is our backyard. We have to hit the layups with guys in the Midwest, but there's no reason. I think a lot of Michigan fans share this sentiment. There's no reason that Michigan, that Block M, can't go to the state of California, can't go to the state of Texas and recruit some of these guys as well, because that, I think, is how you look at Michigan maintaining their dominance in college football. Really fired up for the next couple of weeks and months. Again, if there's any commitments that we have to break down coming from the weekend, we'll be sure to break those down. Appreciate the Michigan fans rocking with the boys again. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.